In the cradle of ancient Athens, where marble gleamed under the Aegean sun and the hum of debate filled the air, a boy was born into privilege, yet destined for something beyond politics and war. His name was Plato, a child of noble blood, raised in the city that worshipped both gods and reason. But Athens, at the height of its glory, was also a place of chaos, where truth itself was fragile and democracy could turn on its own children. As a youth, Plato dreamed of statesmanship. He imagined guiding Athens with justice, wisdom, and order. But those dreams were shattered by the brutal reality of power. He watched his beloved teacher, Socrates, condemned to die, not by enemies of Greece, but by the very people who claimed to love truth and freedom. The poison of that moment burned into Plato's soul. In the death of his master, he saw the sickness of the city, the blindness of men chained to illusion. When Socrates lifted the cup of hemlock, something inside Plato awoke. It was not rebellion but awakening, a realization that the world most men live in is not the world of truth, but a world of shadows, a cave of illusion. So Plato turned away from politics, from ambition, from the noise of the crowd. He began a new journey, not through the streets of Athens, but through the unseen corridors of the mind, a pilgrimage toward the light of understanding. He would one day put it into words, the allegory of the cave. But before he could reveal that vision, he had to escape the darkness himself. After Socrates' death, Athens descended into bitterness and blame. The philosopher's followers were branded as dangerous dreamers, men who had dared to think too freely. Plato, only in his 20s, fled the city he once adored. He wandered across Greece, Egypt, and Italy, searching for wisdom in foreign lands. What he found was both inspiring and disturbing. In Egypt, he saw a civilization built on order, priests guarding secrets older than Greece itself. In the temples of Heliopolis, he learned that truth could be preserved through discipline, but also corrupted by power. In Italy, he met the Pythagoreans, mystics who believed that numbers were the language of the universe, that harmony ruled both the stars and the soul. Their logic stirred him, but everywhere he went, Plato saw the same flaw. Men mistook the shadow for the substance, the appearance for the truth. He began to believe that this illusion, this blindness, was not just political but spiritual. People were not evil. They were asleep. They lived in caves of their own making, staring at reflections and calling them real. The world, Plato realized, was full of educated fools, men who could argue endlessly but never see. His return to Athens was quiet. But within him burned a storm. He would not take revenge for Socrates' death. He would build something greater, a sanctuary for reason, for clarity, for those who wished to awaken. He called it the Academy. And there, under olive trees and open skies, Plato began to teach. He taught that the senses deceive, that true knowledge comes not from seeing but from understanding. He spoke of an unseen world, a realm of perfect forms where beauty, justice, and truth existed in their purest state. His students listened. Among them was a young man named Aristotle, who would one day challenge him but never escape his shadow. Plato's struggle was not with men, but with illusion itself. To awaken others, he had to first learn what it meant to see. In his dialogues, Plato gave the world a mirror, but most men refused to look. Through the voice of Socrates, he shaped questions that would outlive empires. What is justice? What is truth? What is the good life? To Plato, philosophy was not a game of words. It was a path to liberation. He told a story that would echo through millennia. A group of prisoners chained in a cave, their faces turned toward a wall. Behind them a fire, before them shadows, moving shapes cast by unseen hands. These prisoners, he said, mistake the shadows for reality. If one were freed and turned to see the fire, the light would blind him. If he left the cave entirely, stepped into the sunlight, he would see truth, but at a terrible cost. When he returned to the cave to share what he had seen, the others would not believe him. They would kill him for his truth. In that allegory lay the echo of Socrates' death and the prophecy of every age to come. Plato was not merely writing philosophy. He was building a vision of the human soul, torn between comfort and awakening. But even as he taught, Plato wrestled with his own doubts. Could people truly be freed from ignorance? Or were the caves too deep, too familiar, too safe? He began to see that wisdom itself could become a shadow, if it was not rooted in love, in the desire for good. Thus was born the Republic, his dream of a society ruled not by power but by reason. A world where philosopher kings would govern through understanding, not ambition. It was idealistic. Some said naive. But in every age, the dream of the Republic would haunt those who sought justice. Because in Plato's world, philosophy was not escape, it was revolution. Plato's teachings spread beyond Athens. His words crossed borders, influencing kings and poets alike. But the tension between truth and illusion, between the philosopher and the crowd, never faded. When he was invited to the court of Dionysius, the tyrant of Syracuse, Plato saw a chance to make his republic real. But once again he learned that ideals rarely survive in the company of power. The tyrant mocked him. The court laughed at his vision. The philosopher who sought to free men from their caves was instead thrown into slavery, sold in a market like a common prisoner. Only through luck and the help of admirers was Plato ransomed and returned to Athens. The world had humiliated him, but not broken him. He returned to his academy and continued to teach, no longer with the naivety of youth, but with the endurance of a man who had seen how cruel the light can be. His later years were quieter, yet deeper. He wrote the laws, tempering his idealism with realism. He came to see that while the perfect world may not exist on earth, it could live in the mind, and that the act of thinking itself was a form of freedom. When Plato finally died, the story says he was writing, his pen still in his hand. He left behind no throne, no empire, no monument, but he left something far greater, a ladder out of the cave. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell, but Plato's voice never vanished. From Augustine to Aquinas, from Descartes to Kant, his questions shaped the foundation of Western thought. His teacher had died for truth. Plato ensured that truth would never die again. In the end, the cave was not just a metaphor for the ignorant, it was for all of us. Every age builds its own walls of illusion. Politics, media, comfort, pride. And in every age, someone must dare to turn around and face the light. Plato's legacy is not a doctrine, but a challenge. To think is to suffer, yet to refuse to think is to remain in chains. He showed us that freedom is not found in what we see, but in what we understand. As the sun sets over the ruins of Athens, one can still imagine a voice echoing through time, urging us to look beyond the shadows on the wall, and to remember that the truth is not in the darkness, but in the courage to seek the light.